It's the Blood Red podcast, courtesy of the Liverpool Echo. I'm Guy Clarke. Welcome along. The first leg of a potential quadruple completed. Diamond Diaz sparkles with Queven Kelleher again, the cup shootout king for the Reds. Plus, we'll look ahead to Wednesday night's visit of the Canaries with our team selector and match predictions to come. To do that, we have, I was going to say, our own front three, but it looks as though Ian Doyle's internet isn't going to be able to join us. So we've got our correspondent, Paul Gorst, and the Squires. Gents, I trust you both well. And before we do start, indeed, I think a moment of reflection for the Carabao kid, Joe Rimmer, who always tells us so much how much he loves the League Cup, not able to join us due to a meeting. He should have sacked it off and come and joined us. Anyway, it is...
Well, you should have just done it an hour earlier.
Yeah, maybe, but that isn't how it works around here. So anyway... Let's crack on regardless. Gorsty, I'll come over to you first. And, well, I suppose the performance, it was a cagey 0-0. It was a great 0-0 for kind of performance value and entertainment, albeit no goals. But in the end, the Reds got their hands on the cup.
Yeah, it's not a great 0-0 when you're trying to write a 1,000-word verdict and you don't know what way it's going to go, whether you're writing about commiserations and misery and sadness and disappointments and heartache, or you're cheering about, or writing about rather, cheers and celebrations and quadruples, and it's all on, and Liverpool are the greatest team ever. It's just the way elite level sport works, isn't it? It all hangs in the balance when two teams like Chelsea and Liverpool are so evenly matched. Really good game for the neutral. So many chances and talking points and incidents, and the only thing that was missing was a glut of goals, and we kind of had the ball in the net more often than not, didn't we? But all ruled to be offside. I'm sure we'll get into those decisions shortly. But yeah, it was a really good, solid advertisement for the Carabao Cup. In the last 4 years, it's just been dominated by Manchester City, kind of lining them up and knocking them down. And it's been a succession of losers, with City winning 4 on the road to draw level with Liverpool on 8. And when you consider that yesterday was Liverpool's first Carabao Cup win for 10 years, and they're now, record holders on 9. It kind of shows you how dominant they were and how much, how seriously the competition used to be treated by Liverpool in kind of 80s as they were coming through and emerging. And Klopp's been a bit unfortunate, I'd say, in the time Liverpool manager that, he's been knocked out essentially by Premier League teams in this competition. It's always kind of thrown at him that he doesn't take it too seriously, but off the top of my head, he's been beaten by Chelsea twice. He's been beaten by Leicester. He's been beaten by Arsenal.
So he was knocked out by Villa, weren't they?
Yeah, well, Liverpool couldn't do anything about that either, could they? That was a bit of a farce, that, playing 2 games in 24 hours. So I don't think that's always held up, that accusation against Klopp. And certainly this season with the squad he's got now, he's taken it as seriously as he ever has. But the key thing is he's at the players, and he's at the look of the draw, really. Norwich away, Preston away, Leicester at home. Arsenal was obviously a tough one over the 2 legs. But only really coming up against Chelsea in the final is a tie that you wouldn't expect Liverpool necessarily to win nowadays. So, first one in the bag. Obviously great to see them celebrating and all that, and, in front of the fans for the first time on domestic soil. But I just think this could be the kind of prelude to an incredible end to the season. The quadruple is still within reach. No team's ever done it, so they're obviously not odds-on favourites to go and do it. But the fact that it's still available for them as we head into March is just a massive pointer for how. I think it's been an unbelievable season, actually, and I think that kind of holds up. The fact that Liverpool are still going for all 4 as we get into March.
Yeah, Ian Doyle loves the Carabao Cup, the League Cup so much that love, money, nor meetings, nor internet connection are going to stop him being with us on the Blood Red podcast today. Doyle, what did you make of it down at Wembley yesterday?
It was a bit cold, because, I'm of the age now that all that matters is how warm it is. Not bothered about anything else. No, I mean, the game was quite, for 0-0. Funny enough, I was mentioning this to... Me and Paul travelled home this morning. Neil Jones was formerly of this parish, was on the train. I was explaining to him. It reminded me a little bit of the game in 1984, which none of you will remember. The League Cup final then, when Everton played Liverpool. That finished 0-0. but that was incident packed, and there was a lot going on then. So I mean, you'd be hard pressed to get a better 0-0 in terms of the actual action on the pitch. What was it? I'm not sure what Gorst has gone through already with the game, but we've seen the disallowed goals. Whether I'm sure we'll get onto them at some point. Chelsea at the post. Mendy had a great game. Came to the penalties, and at one point we were thinking they're never going to miss. And then when they did, it kind of backfired on Chelsea by making that decision with Kepa, and Klopp's decision to keep Kelleher in and not replace him with Alisson was borne through completely. I mean, totally justified. So overall, I don't think really anybody could complain that Liverpool had won. Although Chelsea, they could say, look, we had that offside chance, Lukaku, it was very, very close, and they hit the post. I think Liverpool played the better overall. I think created the more chances. And of course, then when it came to the actual crunch of the penalty shootouts, we can't argue with the fact that every single player who was remaining on the pitch scored a penalty. How often has that happened? I can't see that happening too often. So, and was it two defeats in 50 now? So, I think as Gorsty said, then it's been a remarkable season. It could become even more remarkable, but in the next couple of days, they're playing 4 games to play that League Cup game. They got the FA Cup game on Wednesday against Norwich, then they got a big league game on Saturday, and they got a Champions League game on Tuesday. So it's 4 games, 4 different competitions. The next 3 are at home. To be honest, the game at Wembley may as well have been at home. I think Liverpool's fans, did themselves proud with the support on the day. And then we'll know an awful lot more. What was it, in 9 days' time?
Yeah, definitely. Theo, in the end, it was a tale of 3 keepers, wasn't it? I mean, Queen Kelleher, Edouard Mendy were brilliant during the course of the action as well. Kelleher, of course, sticking away his penalty, and has been alluded to, Kepa being brought on off the bench and not being able to get near any of them, including Virgil van Dijk's penalty. What a hit that was, and Fabinho as well, the cheek to do that.
Yeah, the keepers were both superb. Like, you think of all these chances that were created in that game, and apart from the disallowed goals, it was just the tale of the keepers. It's one where you can't really decide who was the man of the match between them. It would have just gone to whichever one of them won the game. We were just talking before we came on here. So it was such a strange decision to bring Kepa on and lose Mendy when you think only a few weeks ago he was the penalty shootout hero for Senegal in the Cup of Nations. He is one of the best goalkeepers in the world. He looked unbeatable. That save from Mane, whether you think Mane should have scored or not, the speed to get up and keep out and make himself look big was brilliant. And he's had one-on-ones with Diaz and everything. It was great. And then I remember, Lukaku's little flick that Kelleher kept out with his feet at the near post, the early one from Pulisic. So Carragher had given Klopp a bit of stick, hadn't he, in the build-up to the game, saying, what's he doing, not starting Alisson? But you just need to have seen Kelleher play to know he isn't a normal number 2 goalkeeper. There is something else about him. He is special. If he was at, 17 clubs in England in the Premier League, he'd probably be first choice. He is that good. And his journey with Liverpool, it might not be a long-term one because he deserves to be a first choice somewhere. It's just enjoying having him at the club for as long as he is happy to be this number 2. And he's got to get these rewards in the domestic cups along the way. And sure enough, he got his hands on the trophy. What I liked was Klopp's interview afterwards when he was talking about when he had to tell Alisson that Kelleher would be starting. And rather than sulk, get bottom lip or anything, his response was, I hope we win so he can go on the wall with us, because they've got, their goalkeeping mural with all the keepers who've won trophies. Adrian's on it from winning the Super Cup. Alisson's on it, Premier League, Champions League. And now Kelleher is going to be on there as well as this League Cup hero. As Doyle was saying, how often do you see those penalties going? I think I had a doubt maybe about Robertson or Konate, but only Konate's that Kepa got anywhere near. And Kelleher's was one of the best. Some keepers are just really good at penalties, and he's one of them. In the build-up to the game, I wrote a piece predicting that he's got to start. He's going to be a penalty hero in this because Alisson doesn't save them, and he's got this record. He might not have saved them, but he stepped up in the right way to get the win.
Yeah,
destroying Alisson there. Destroying Alisson. Penalties. Yeah, this is
that's
the
O, isn't it? Shots fired. Yeah. Yeah, as per usual. But Gorsty, you mentioned before, and Doyle did as well, that the disallowed goals, the offside goals. I mean, there was one in particular, Lukaku, the T-shirt line, the famed T-shirt line. We might even discuss a bit of that from the Premier League weekend in a bit as well. But were Liverpool fortunate with that one? The other ones were quite clearly offside. The Matip goal that was ruled out was disallowed, and that seemed quite harsh as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think if that happens down the other end for Liverpool, you're going absolutely spare, aren't you? Certainly supporters would be the they've drawn up the lines and they've just kind of done an arbitrary line and just gone, oh, it's offside, let's move on, let's get on with it. So Liverpool probably got away with that one, but then, they were kind of hard done by the other end, weren't they, when Matip scores. So sometimes it evens itself out, sometimes it doesn't. The other two were offside, clearly. Kai Havertz was a good left foot offside for his one, and Timo Werner was well offside. So, no complaints over those ones, or no real need to debate them either. But, Klopp, I mean, he didn't want to get drawn into it in his press conference after the game for obvious reasons. He's sitting there with his Champions T-shirt on. He doesn't want to be sitting there moaning about referee decisions or whatever else. But kind of just said, I didn't see the Matip one back yet, but it's not our favourite topic. And it certainly wasn't on Saturday night, because that was a very tricky situation to understand, or something along those lines. He said, clearly referring to the Everton decision when Rodri has pretty much come out and, playing basketball, wasn't he, and somehow got away with it. So I can see why Klopp was keen to avoid talking about it, but, we can here, can't we? And I think Chelsea got away with one, Liverpool got away with one, and the other two were offside. And Manchester City certainly got away with one on Saturday night at Goodison Park.
Yeah, definitely. Doyle, what was your take on the Matip goal getting ruled out, and whether Virgil van Dijk was interfering? He said after the game he didn't even know why he was involved, because he wasn't going for the ball, but did seem some kind of block on Reece James.
Well, woof, exactly. Yeah, I think that the weird thing is that this is like this kind of rules just suddenly appeared, hasn't it, over the last couple of months. It happened 4 against United, wasn't it? Manchester United, Aston Villa, and Burnley away, wasn't it? Where it's happened. And I don't even think it's happened to anybody else. I can't remember any time it's happened, but I don't know. In the old days, it's funny, isn't it? I know, you can't play past games with the rules of today, because you probably have about 3 players left on the field because they all have been killing each other. But loads of goals would be disallowed through this kind of thing. It's like blocking is part of it. And the thing is, Chelsea didn't complain at all, did they? Chelsea didn't complain. They just thought it was a well-worked goal from Liverpool's point of view. It's just a soft one, isn't it? And it's just that they're falling over the rules, and they're trying to make life hard for themselves. I do think that, for everybody inside the stadium had absolutely no idea what had happened. Even we didn't. Like, we were in the press box because we can't get a sound on the monitors that we're watching. So I was like messaging people who watching on television, going, what on earth just happened then? And the people in the crowd were like, people I know, Liverpool fans, were messaging me, going, what happened then? And I was like, I don't know, actually. Just got disallowed for whatever. So, yeah, it is a difficult one. I think with the Manchester City one, it's handball. No idea what's going on there. And I think for the Lukaku one, at the time we thought that was offside. Then we saw it, went, oh, hang on. First time you looked at it, you went, that looks like it could be onside. But as you said, it's all to do with the arms and the armpits and the sleeves and the
line does seem to be drawn from his elbow. I mean, as we say, to me, maybe there were 2 legitimate goals.
Well, I think with the lines, they always say, don't they? They go, well, actually, what you see on television is not quite the high definition that we see back in Stockley Park. So they could just justify that. What surprised me is how quickly they came to the decision, to be honest. And I know we've been complaining for, when VAR first started, that they were taking forever to make decisions. But that was one where you could have gone, well, actually, I understand why they've taken a little bit longer, but they just had a look and just went sound. I mean, in some ways, that's good, because if they're going to do that with all of them, then fine. Then if there are any minor kind of mistakes, then they'll just even themselves out. It just seemed as though what they did in that respect was they just went with the decision that the linesman, the referee's assistants gave on the pitch, and went, yeah, that's it. We'll just carry on. And I think perhaps going forward, maybe they should do that for any kind of marginal decisions. Just go with the call of on the field. Then, unless they can prove it otherwise, just go, well, actually, we're just going to stick with that.
Yeah, maybe a bit away from the cup final there, more maybe on that Man City one in particular, because the offsides aren't subjective calls, they're definitive ones that aren't right or wrong. But certainly subjective calls since VAR's coming. Do you think a fair few of the Premier League referees are maybe kind of bottling decisions, waiting for the VAR to actually step in and decide whether it's a handball or not, for example, in the Rodri situation? And then you've got the whole, it's got to be conclusive to overturn, no benefit of doubt to overturn the decision. And yet, clear as day, that one with Rodri in particular, look handball quite evident?
Yeah, it's odd. Like the decisions seem to change week on week. Like you can get the same incidents in some games, and you're going to get a different outcome with them. You'd imagine when there's the pressures on them, and the referees know they've got the VAR there. Maybe they don't want to make the call because they can just have VAR to bail them out. But then at the same time, VAR maybe doesn't want to make the call because at the same time they want to let the referees make it. They want the game to be as natural as possible. You've got to remember how reluctant football was to embrace technology, embrace video technology, like goal line technology. They were eventually happy with because it was clear cut. I think there's only one big error we can think of in that sense, and that was what was it? The Villa Sheffield United one was that. Everything else they get spot on there, but with all this, it just seems to change week on week, and I don't get how they can watch it on the monitors and they think, no, that's not handball, and then they'll carry on when everyone else is watching it at home. It's like, well, you people involved in the game, like you should be able to clearly do it, and it's just how confusing the rules must be for them. Like we talk about for offsides, whether it's the t-shirt line, handball changes season on season, whether it's shoulder, elbow, lower like your forearm. It just, yeah, it's all confusing, and it just doesn't really make it very easy to watch at times. I think this is a Premier League title race, and that handball decision could be decisive come May. And you don't want it to be coming down to the officials and making these controversial decisions. You want it to just be the quality that Manchester City have and the quality that Liverpool have on the pitch. Like we saw, the offsides did cancel each other out. I'm looking at it, and Virgil van Dijk is really tall. He is really muscular. Reece James struggled to get around him. It's not really a block. Reece James just couldn't get around him. And then he's not really moved, so he's not offside. That was a soft one. And then Lukaku, I'd have had no qualms if that had been given. I like them giving benefit of the doubt. I think that's something they need to bring back, giving the benefit of the doubt to the attacking sides. But there was no doubt.
Yeah, they're trying to chalk off goals, aren't they? That's what they're there. They're forensically examining how they can disallow a goal. It's ridiculous.
But they need to be giving more goals because we want to see goals in this game. Like if the League Cup final had ended 1-1 and went on penalties the same way, it's a great game that's had the goals that it should have had. Like football, you want to see these goals. But it's just then the penalty one. When everyone can see it and the officials still don't give it, we're going to be having this debate every single season, week on week. They're going to go in the summer, they'll make the little changes again, and they'll probably still find something wrong with it. It's just the way it is at the moment. Jurgen Klopp's not happy with VAR, and you can't see it changing anytime soon because once they've fought so hard to not have technology in the game and then bring it in, it would be quite an embarrassing U-turn if they got rid of it altogether. There will be a compromise at some point, but you're always going to find issues with it.
Well, what I would add on VAR, the Man City one, is that it's interesting because I was travelling down to London, so I didn't see it at the time, and I just saw one replay of it. It wasn't even a replay; it was real time, knowing it wasn't handball, and just immediately went, "Well, that's handball," And I think sometimes you can look at something too often, and you don't trust your instincts. And I think that touched on something that Theo said. I think somebody else was saying that the referee was perhaps unsighted, so couldn't see it properly, which is fine because that's what VAR is there for. So VAR should have just looked at it and gone, "Well, that's clearly a penalty." But you slow it down like 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and you can just look at it and look at it and look at it, and you can finally see whatever you want to see. And probably, I'm surprised he didn't give it like a free kick to Man City by the end of it, So it was one of those. So I do think that he can sometimes just look at things a bit too much. That applies to everything as well, to be honest.
Yeah. I hate talking about refs too much because when I tweet out, who's taking charge of a Liverpool game this week, without fail, I get dozens of comments, and it'll be like, "Oh well, we're not going to win this one then," or whatever. And it doesn't matter who the referee is. And to me, they're all just names. I couldn't place a name with a face really. Maybe for like 2 or 3 refs, but generally they're all names and they're all just faces, and I pay no attention to it because I think if a team's good enough, then they're going to win the game. They shouldn't have to be worrying about referees at the end of the day. But I do think they become bogged down a little bit in finicky directives and overly officious guidelines. We're talking about a handball, and it's got to be below the t-shirt line, it's got to be in the red zone, it's got to be in an unnatural position, and this, that, and the other. And like Doyle says, sometimes they can look at it ad infinitum and decide what they want to decide based on the angles they've seen. And don't you? You know what a handball is. You see it, and you say, "Well, that's handball." You just know. There's no need for 12 different kind of bullet points for each little kind of rule in the rule book. That was handball, and City have got away with it. And I think it was telling as well from Ruben Diaz. He kind of appeals for it, he hears the handball shot from the crowd and then appeals for it, and then suddenly realizes that it's his own player, and then decides to kind of wave it away as though as if to say, "Oh, behave yourself. What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
So that was probably a telling sign as well. But City massively got away with one there.
Yeah, no, definitely. Right, let's not talk about too many more refereeing decisions. There were a number we could still go through, but let's not do that. Gorst, you referenced it before, the quadruple. Is it on?
Don't see why not. I was called giddy for suggesting as much, but when Trent Alexander-Arnold is putting on Instagram a quarter down, and he's happy to openly talk about it, and Jurgen Klopp's speaking about the need for this team to win more silverware, to be recognised as a great era for Liverpool, as opposed to just a kind of fleeting 13-month period. And I don't see why you can't discuss it. You know, we're getting into we're getting into March, and Liverpool have still got them all to chase. Normally, Man City getting spoken about doing a quadruple in November and December, and I think it's going under the radar a little bit for Liverpool because they're not a squad that have been built in terms of 50 million players in every single position. You know, you haven't got 50, 60 million pound fullbacks to come in when the starting fullbacks are out or whatever. You know, it's a squad that is one of the best in world football, but it's an organically constructed one, if you like, in terms of you can go across the squad and think, well, Matip was a free, Trent's come through the academy, Milner was on a free, and Tsimikas was only £10 million, and Robertson was quite cheap. It's not a squad that has just gone and spent hundreds and hundreds of millions to fix every kind of little issue in the squad. It's very much what they've done on the training pitch over the course of the last 3-4 years, and then they've added in little bits of quality here and there. And obviously they've spent money because you don't get anywhere in football without spending money. But I do kind of think it's going under the radar a little bit because they're not a squad that cost £800 million, let's say. We're getting into March. They've got an FA Cup game at home to a relegation-threatened team who are probably going to heavily rotate, so you'd expect them to win that on Wednesday. That puts them into the quarter-final. They're at home to Inter with a 2-0 lead from the first leg. If they win that, then they're in the quarters of that one. They're still going, all guns blazing for the Premier League. So why not? I mean, personally, if you ask me now, I'd still make Manchester City favourites. But the fact that Liverpool are in with a puncher's chance as we come into the final couple of months of the season, why not? As I wrote yesterday in the match verdict, optimism for fans is one of the best things you can have in football, because without it, what are we all looking forward to at the weekend as football fans? And obviously Liverpool fans will certainly say something similar, I'd imagine. And it's for Klopp to kind of stay clear of saying it and whatever else. But I think there is a quiet kind of acceptance within this group that they need more trophies and something special could be brewing. Whether that's a quadruple, a double, a treble, who knows? But certainly good enough to go and have a good crack at them all.
Yeah, I think organic's a good term as well. I mean, if you look at the right-back position at the start of the season, yes, 3 internationals in Trent Alexander-Arnold, Nico Williams and Conor Bradley, but all 3 have come through the academy as well. Some free transfers in there in Joel Matip and James Milner as well. Yeah, Doyle, I think I know what you're going to say, but Liverpool do have the squad for it, don't they? Albeit Thiago's injury might now be quite key. Yeah,
it depends. We have to wait and see what's happened there. He's suffered a tight hamstring during the warm-up, and it's interesting, wasn't it? There's a player who's won 20-odd major trophies, and yet the chance of a Wembley final, it just snatched away from him. He was in tears, wasn't he, on the touchline? So I felt a bit sorry for him, although he was obviously all smiles by the end of it because Liverpool won the game, and that's what matters. That's what mattered to him more than anything else. So good. What's the question then? You asked me whether they can win the quadruple. Yeah, well, funnily enough, given the fact that it's never been done, I don't think it's a massive surprise for me to say I don't think they're going to do it. However, they have won the one thing that they could so far. And yeah, as vase of flowers, depends on how you want to say it, has just said on our YouTube, he's put a little message in, says a repeat of 1984 would be nice. And that, for anybody who's not old enough, which is most people in the world, that was, they won the league, the European Cup and the League Cup. And they won the League Cup after a 0-0 in the first game, although then he went obviously to went to replay in those days. So yeah, that would be nice. What, sorry? The George Orwell fan. Oh yeah. Well, we're already there anyway. We've been living that for a long time. Don't worry. So yeah, can they do it? Yeah. Will they do it? Probably not. What would you expect them to do? I would be not surprised, but there will be a certain slight disappointment if they don't put themselves into a position to win at least one more. Now, whether that means taking City down to the last game or getting to a final. I mean, the FA Cup looks decent. I mean, they've got Norwich, as Gorst said, they're going to rotate, but Liverpool rotate, and I don't think we can underestimate, I should say, just how tired some Liverpool players were. It'll be interesting to see who actually plays, which I'm sure we'll get onto that eventually. Then it did need to get a good draw in the quarter-final, because when you get down to Wembley, Liverpool have now shown that they can. They didn't have a great record at the new Wembley, if we're being honest, but now they can show they can win there and win really close games. And that's another thing that's very important for them to do that. As I said before, they've only lost 2 of the last 50 games. Chelsea had only lost 4 games all season. So it was always going to be really, really tight. And Liverpool's record, I mean, you could argue, what was it? They drew twice with Chelsea in the league. They drew with Man City. Who else is up there? Who's third? Who's third? No, that's Chelsea. Who's fourth?
Oh, sorry.
Manchester United are fourth at the moment.
United. So yeah, they won at United, didn't they? So yeah, okay, maybe. But they're like the top teams. Those 3, and they haven't beaten either of them so far this season. And you could argue, well, they didn't beat Chelsea, but they did. They won on penalties. That's how you win a trophy. If it goes to a Champions League final, that's what would happen. And they'd have won that as well. So yeah, I do think the quadruple. I think Liverpool are in a better position than they ever have been to do that. And as Mr. Flowers says, if they can get a league and a European Cup on top of the League Cup, I think no one's going to go, oh, they missed out on the quadruple. They'd be like, wow, what a treble that was.
Yeah, well, obviously got a treble in 2001, didn't they? Started with the League Cup as well.
It was a cup treble.
Yeah, well,
I think a proper treble's got to have a league in the league title.
Right, okay, well, it was still three trophies won, but
anyway. All right, okay.
Right, Theo, in terms of mentality shift and everything...
Can't I do treble talk?
You can. Yeah, no, you can. But in terms of what is needed and what is required is getting over that line in finals. Obviously, it was so often said how Jurgen Klopp was getting teams to finals and not getting over the line. That now seems to have changed that rhetoric. And he's also got the other thing that was missing off the CV, which was a Wembley Cup final win. He's been there with Dortmund, obviously, in the Champions League. He's been there with Liverpool in the League Cup, but that ghost can be laid to rest as well now.
Yeah, Liverpool now have that belief, they have that confidence, and they're so relaxed about it as well. Like we're talking there about Trent saying a quarter of the way down. Liverpool have got no pressure on themselves here. They know that they've done well to get back in the title race. They'll have confidence in themselves to progress in the Champions League over 2 legs, knowing they've got the power of Anfield. They know they've got a nice FA Cup run, and they've done it all before now. They've won at Wembley, they've won the Premier League, they've won the Champions League. They have a lot of confidence without putting that pressure on themselves. They know that they have the talent, and there's a bit of a difference to when they won the league, where they wouldn't talk about it. They wouldn't say, oh, we're going to win it, because they didn't want to jinx it. Now it's saying it almost offhand, but knowing they're not letting anyone down if they do fall short. We should compare that to Man City. They put that pressure on themselves so much. They got the 100 points, and then they were desperate for the quadruple, and it didn't happen. And they put the pressure on themselves to win the European Cup every single year, and they fall short. There's a bit more desperation there, whereas Liverpool can just be relaxed. They could be calm, take it each game as it comes, knowing they've won it all before. They've got the fans behind them. They've now won at Wembley. They've got a bit of everything. And it's not arrogance, but there's the confidence, and there is that calmness there. Like, there's hearing so many fans walking away from Wembley this morning or yesterday going, oh, we'll be back in April. We'll be back in May. It's just Liverpool are playing not their best football, but they're getting the results. And when you've got that talent in the squad and that depth in the squad, and they've got that mentality in the squad, there's no reason why they can't go all the way and everything. But it depends on all the little things that happen in the season, such as injuries, such as players losing form, such as who they actually get in the cups. Like we're saying, Norwich is quite a nice game at home in the 5th round when you expect them to rotate, but then you could get Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, you could get Man City at the Etihad, and then it looks suddenly a very different prospect. Same if you got them in the Champions League and you have to go to their place in the second leg. But if you're at Anfield, you've got the belief. There's no reason not to be confident. Liverpool have achieved everything they need to in the past, and this season they've already set it up to be a great success. If they finish with just 1 trophy, probably say they fell a little bit short, but they've put themselves in a great position, as Gorsty said, as we head into March.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it, Gorsty? I know the famous quote is doubters to believers, but it's kind of gone beyond believers now into those who expect Liverpool to be taking these trophies.
Yeah, and I think that kind of filters down to the team, doesn't it? When Trent said when he was previewing the Inter game, one trophy minimum seems to be now the expectation. And I think they might have been a little bit hurt actually from last year in terms of how the title defence crumbled and, under the weight of injuries and whatever else, because Liverpool were riding high up until, the end of December when it kind of went a turn for them. It looked like at one point that they were going to walk away with it again. I remember them beating Palace on December the 19th, I think, and they went 7 points clear and it was all looking rosy again. And maybe there was a little bit of a gathering over the summer when they said, now, everyone's fit, let's really hunker down and go for it. And so far, so good. The league is an interesting one because even like 3 weeks ago, they were 12, 14 points behind City, and now it's back to 6 now. But certainly, if they win the game in hand again, it's back down to 3, and they've obviously still got to go to the Etihad. That still wouldn't make them, favourites for the Premier League title. And the Champions League is always, the toughest competition to win, isn't it? But certainly, in terms of the FA Cup, I expect them to go through to the quarters now, and then I don't think anyone will be relishing getting drawn against Liverpool there, and it's just about, I guess, taking it every game as it comes. But they've got the squad now to mix and match and rotate, and the quality isn't hugely diluted, which something that hasn't always been the case. So yeah, it's all looking rosy as we look towards the start of March, and I think it'd be a bit of a massive disappointment actually if Liverpool finish the season with just what they've got at the moment, the Carabao Cup. If they finish second in the Premier League and got knocked out in the other two competitions along the way, but we'll see. Yeah, it's just a massively optimistic period, I think, and it has been since they beat Arsenal in the second leg of the semi-final. It was almost overnight that kind of turned the season on its head. At the time, there was no Mane and Salah. They were looking a little bit short of confidence and ideas up top, and then almost overnight that result changed the season around.
Yeah, not a bad team to go and prove your title credentials against. Certainly not. Right. Anyway, right. One sort of final point I wanted to make, Doyle, was do they need to, I suppose, we spoke so much about the absence of fans and what impact that had yesterday. It felt that pure connection, certainly at full time, and the way in which a number of the players actually immediately spoke about winning the trophy in front of the supporters. I can't imagine a League Cup parade is going to happen at the end of the season, but given they never got to parade the Premier League title, maybe some more of that hunger to have those kind of scenes that we saw obviously after the Champions League win at Madrid is maybe fueling this team as well.
I agree. I mean, Jurgen Klopp, when we spoke to him last Monday, actually, I don't even think these bits got used, so I've got to be careful because they may get used at a later date. But I think he kind of intimated, look, we don't. No one does a parade for a League Cup. He says, but and we can't really do something for the Premier League now. That's gone. We just have to make sure that we do something else again so we can have a parade. So, you are right that. I've just actually finished writing something actually about the number of players who that was like their first time winning something with Liverpool. Think of Jota, Canate, Diaz. Obviously, he's been here for 5 minutes, but even then,
Tsimikas, he was loving this.
Tsimikas. Even then, you look at someone like Kelleher, who's I think he's had 4 medals already before, but he hadn't played. He hadn't, contributed in terms of on the pitch. Obviously, he had done behind the scenes. He hadn't contributed anything in any of those. But quite clearly, as Klopp said, this was his competition, and he was man of the match for a reason in the final. Although they gave it to Virgil van Dijk, which I wasn't completely in agreement with. Although Van Dijk did do okay. And someone like Harvey Elliott, who got a Super Cup medal, a World Club medal, played 2 games in the Premier League when they won the league, and he got he was given a medal for that. I think Klopp was quite keen for him and Kelleher to get one. But he hadn't even played in the League Cup for Liverpool until he came on. He wasn't even meant to be on the bench, and he comes on. I thought he played really well actually when he was on the did what he had to do. When you bear in mind he's the first 18-year-old ever to play for Liverpool in a major final, and then he scores his penalty and then picks up a fleur, and the FA didn't quite like that so much, but one of those just exuberance of youth for which kind of flirted over a little bit, wasn't it? With that little bit with he got a bit involved with Kai Havertz and Trent, didn't he? When they had a little bit of flare up in extra time, which James Milner came over and said, "Well, that's enough of that, Harvey. Let me deal with this." and he started getting stuck in. So that was good. I mean, but for all of them, the point being is that they've now experienced what everybody else in the squad's experienced. I mean, even Minamino, when he got the, I remember when he got the Premier League trophy, he said, didn't he, 6 months later, he said, I felt like I didn't really quite deserve that because I only joined halfway through a season. And while he didn't play in the final, he played in all the other games.
Yeah.
And he scored the important goals, and he scored that very important goal at the end of the quarter-final against Leicester, which took it to penalty. So this competition's been one where I think I miscounted. I thought it was 32 players, actually 33 players. Different players have played in this competition, that's going to be a first for
Liverpool. 6 games, did we say it is?
I think it was the third round, the fourth. Yeah, 6 games. So six
games and the 33 players. It's basically 3 11s have played.
Yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, they used 3 different goalkeepers, didn't they? So, they all at some point played very well. I think Alisson only played the 1 game, didn't he? That was at Arsenal. That 2-0 when he had a decent game there.
You not played the home?
No, it was the same.
He played the home one. He played the home one. Sorry, that's when
It's 10 men where he didn't need to do anything.
I think he had to make 1 save from Saka, though, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
In the second half, there was the 1 save, so he still kept a clean sheet. Adrian played well against Preston, but the point being is that they all feel as though they contributed, whereas in the past, perhaps that wasn't quite the case for the likes of Keller and Elliott. So going forward, all of these players now know we know how to win a major final with Liverpool, and forget next season, the season after that, where a lot of them will still be there, Canati, Jota, Elliott, all of those. There's still 3 trophies to play for this season, so Klopp now knows that he's got these players who have the ability and the knowledge and the experience, because everyone says, like, winning that first trophy is the hardest one in your careers, whether it's a team or as an individual. They've all done it now, and they've all done it together. So I think it does augur very well for the next few months and for the next few years.
Yeah, it's also fun we're going into March and not having to be talking about transfers in the summer, isn't it? We can actually talk about football.
Yeah,
we'll be talking about transfers as well. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I think Doyle makes a good point there in terms of looking at the whole squad. I mean, it's easy to look at the final and look at Van Dijk and Salah and Trent and whoever else, Fabinho. But it's a victory for everyone, isn't it? All of those players, Harvey Blair making his senior debut at Preston, and Origi and Minamino, of course, that they were the 2 not so much unsung heroes, but certainly 2 senior players who majorly played their part at Norwich and Preston, and then Minamino at Leicester. Nico Williams, Conor Bradley, Kate Gordon, Tyler Morton. Yeah. And Billy Cometio played against Leicester, didn't he? I think he only played the first half, but
Owen Beck, he came on, didn't he?
It's not come on against Norwich as well.
I think he came on against Preston at the end.
Right.
Elijah Dixon.
Are we just naming all 33 players here?
Yeah.
Well,
basically.
That's the point.
Klopp,
it's a victory for all. So
Klopp did that after the game, didn't he? Made a point. I want to mention all of these players.
He name dropped Dixon Bonner, didn't he? He turned to the press officer to ask, right, who am I missing? So he could reel off all the names and give them their applause.
Yeah, no, definitely. And they're all, of course, going to be getting a medal. The EFL will be working overtime trying to get all of those medals sorted. Anyway, right, on to the next one. Now then, the FA Cup on Wednesday. Not really need, I don't think, to preview the game as much. We've spoken about kind of where it fits into Liverpool's priorities this season, and it is the next one up. So let's get into our team selector. And in goal, it's got to be the Cup King, hasn't it? Caoimhin Kelleher to stay between the sticks. I'll be bold enough to not ask you guys about that. But Gorsty, what about the back four?
There's no Nico Williams there now, is there? I think Milner maybe start at right back.
What about Gomez? He played the recent league game in Norwich, didn't he?
Gomez is a shout. I think he may be saved for centre back, to be honest. Conor Bradley, is he fit at the moment? He
scored for the under-23s against Arsenal on last Friday.
Oh, right, okay.
We won 4-1 against Arsenal at Arsenal. Good win against Arsenal.
No reaction.
Start Conor Bradley at right back on Wednesday night. On the left, Tsimikas. And then maybe my centre backs are Canate and Gomez.
Right. Doyle, what about your back four?
Don't know really. I mean, on Wednesday, it's also the Youth League game against Genk, the last 16. I think I'm right in saying, I think Conor Bradley's still eligible for that game. And so's the likes of Tyler Morton and Kate Gordon.
He did play in the Champions League games, yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. I actually think because Trent didn't play at all. What was the game the other day? Was it Norwich?
No,
Yeah,
yes, it was.
Oh yeah, it was Norwich. Yeah.
It was Norwich. He wasn't involved at all. I think he'll play, and I think it'll be Tsimikas, Gomez, and Canati. The rest.
You going with Doyle or with Gorst here?
Well, before we started, I was thinking Joe Gomez at right back, but then maybe Virgil van Dijk is long overdue a rest here. So I think they do tend to save the senior youngsters for the youth league when those games do clash. So perhaps it would be Doyley's call with whatever he's just said. I've forgotten. I've gone blank completely.
Trent,
Canate, Gomez, and Tsimikas. Yeah, makes sense.
Stay with you before you forget about your midfield, mate. What are you doing? 3 in midfield.
Milner, Holding, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Curtis Jones.
Right. Okay. Gorsty, what do you make of
that? Maybe a shout for Elliott. Oxlade-Chamberlain. No, actually, because it does seem a bit harsh on Gomez, on Jones to leave him out entirely, because I thought he played well when he played the other night. When the games are catching up. I mean, who did he play against the other night? He started, didn't he?
Leeds.
Yeah. But I do think you need just that kind of solid base. Yeah, I'll go with Milner, Elliott, and Jones.
Doyley?
I think Henderson will start. He'll play the number 6 or Fabinho, one of those two. I don't think they'll go with Milner. Milner can unfortunately no longer run so much to cover that kind of ground, so I don't think he can really do that job. He's good if he's part of a midfield 3 starting a game coming off after an hour, or like he did on Sunday, where he just got stuck in and he running around for 30, 35, 40 minutes, which I think that's what he's up to at the moment. So I play Henderson, I play Oxlade-Chamberlain. Now I play Jones, but I'm just trying to work out where to play him. So come back to me.
Right. Okay. What about the strikers then, Doyley?
Don't come back to me straight away about them. go to the others. That's the idea.
Of course. What about the front 3?
I think Origi might start. I think Salah might start, actually. As wild as that sounds, I think Klopp probably ask him how you feel, and he'll say he wants to play. I didn't think Jota was 100% when he come on, actually. But I think Diaz was exhausted, and we got told something today, didn't we, that Diaz did, in fact, admit that he was absolutely shattered after his 120 minutes yesterday. So yeah, I'll go with Origi and Jota. They can kind of interchange between the left and the centre, and Salah.
Theo?
I think Origi and Minamino will start, and then it's just choosing that third one. Mane came off first out of the 3, so maybe you put him in. I agree, Jota just didn't look fit enough. Whether that's the argument to put him in to get the fitness up, or if he's still not 100% and they just rushed him back because it was a final and he needs a bit more time. So it'd be, if Jota is ready, he can play down the middle or on the left. And then if he's not, Harvey Elliott can actually go in the front 3, but then that might make me rethink my midfield with Elliott in the midfield and Oxlade-Chamberlain in the front 3. They could just to make it flexible, I suppose. But I will point out, didn't Doyley just kill James Milner? Just 2-footed him. Always goes in on me for... Yeah, you said he can't run anymore. You said he...
You needed to see out games.
You said he can't run anymore. You wrote him off. You said he can't run anymore.
He's about my age. Don't be surprised, really.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. So what is your 3 then? You chose someone who's in your midfield, and the rest of it you can decide.
It depends how fit Jota is. Jota, Origi, Minamino, if he's fit enough, and that extra few days has helped. If not, it would be Origi, Minamino, and then Elliott. But it'd probably be Oxlade-Chamberlain with Elliott dropping into the midfield. So I'm still saying in the name 11. Right. I'll just have to have a reshuffle depending on Jota's availability.
Okay, Doyley, have you had enough time to think?
No, but I'll just give you an answer anyway. I will say, for a start, there's going to be 5 subs, isn't there? So it's not that important to. Well, it is obviously important who starts, but it's not quite as important as if it was a league game. So in the midfield, I would have Henderson, Oxlade-Chamberlain, and Jones, and up front, I'll have Minamino on the left, Origi down the middle, and I'll go with Elliott down the right.
Right, okay. No worries. Right. Doyley, what about match prediction then? What's the score going to be?
Who are they playing?
Norwich.
Norwich.
Yeah.
Again? I mean, how many times? It depends what Norwich do. I think Norwich will put up a really good fight, actually. Genuinely do think it's going to be really close. 2-1 Liverpool.
Gorsty.
Yeah, I can't see Norwich putting out anywhere near as strong 11 as what they would in the Premier League game. They're absolutely fighting for their lives, aren't they? And this is probably a bit of a distraction, to be honest, going to Anfield where the record isn't great. So I think Liverpool will probably be quite comfortable, really, 2-0.
And Theo?
I reckon there'll be goals, partly because I'm expecting Ozan Kabak to start for Norwich. So I'm going to go 3-2 Liverpool.
Absolutely.
He's just absolutely destroyed Cameron.
Whoa.
He just two-footed. Just
Wow.
throwing that.
No
you know,
run up
I don't
either.
know.
That was just bang straight in. Anyway,
He's
right.
just,
That's
he's
it.
just throwing the
It's-
haymakers
it's
everywhere.
always
He's just like bang, 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 bang.
Yeah, it just goes around kicking people.
Giving the audience what they want.
Yeah, exactly. Right, that's it anyway for this edition of the Blood Red podcast. We will, of course, have all the build-up to the FA Cup 5th round tie with Norwich City. We'll have the press conferences on the channel as well, and plenty of build-up from the gentleman alongside me on the Liverpool Echo website. Do keep across all of that. But from myself, Guy Clarke, Paul Gorst, Ian Doyle and Theo Squires, thanks for your time and your company. Bye.